So, Deer Days is a pretty easy game on its normal difficulty. Mostly, with more of the ramping difficulty being artificial trigger luck and less of your opponent somehow having every out to your board. Looking at you, Champions Battle. If you know how to properly deck build, pack/craft the cards you need, and just be overall goated with the game, you'll breeze through Deer Days pretty easily. So I thought, if Pokemon could have these sorts of challenge type runs like Nuzlocke, maybe I could do a quote-unquote Deer Days sort of equivalent. Initially while trying to draft this, in my head I was thinking of two ways to make the run challenging. One, how to impact and limit deck building where I'm forced to adapt instead of playing optimal deck building choices. And two, how would permadeath operate in the game? I figured almost pure Highlander, not including Persona Rides, PGs, and triggers, would probably be the way to go to make unit deaths easier to track, while also making deck building really scarce, since sometimes you'll be forced to run vanillas in your deck. How permadeath works is either a unit on board is removed via effects, whether being retired or bound or sold in, and after being removed, the card can no longer be used for the rest of the run. For example, if my card was swung at or called over, it would count towards a unit's death. These would also include cards that would need to retire or bind themselves to effects, making them effectively one-use cards. For guarding, to make things more annoying but fair, only intercepting would count towards a unit's death, meaning that if I sometimes wanted to live, I would need to sack off units. After using these two as my guidelines or rules, here's what I came up with. 1. If you lose a fight, including mandatory losses, you can no longer use all the cards that were included in the deck, making a total of 30 cards lost, including the ride line. 2. You can only play one of cards in the main deck, excluding triggers and PGs. 3. You can have up to 3 Persona copies in a deck. Persona Rides can be called, but if that rearguard is retired, bound, or etc., you can no longer use that ride line. 4. If a rearguard is retired, bound, or sold in, whether swung at, removed by effects, or called over, you can no longer use that card for the rest of the run. Intercepting also counts towards the unit's deaths. Also counts towards units that require to be retired/bound to activate effects. 5. Orders can be used to fill in spots for deck space, but can die if you lose while using the deck. The same one-of restriction still applies to orders. 6. If a rearguard is retired, then at any time is revived, for example Diantha to CB1 call something from drop, it may stay until the end of the game, but afterwards you cannot use that card anymore for the rest of the run. 7. You are not allowed to call triggers or perfect guards to rearguard circles. 8. You cannot run extra copies of the G0, G1, and G2 choice ride line. Whereas for 9, ride lines are considered whatever is chosen during deck construction. If a card in the ride line dies, all of the cards included in that ride line cannot be used anymore. 10. This means you can also run units meant as rearguards for ride lines, and the same applies if you lose a match, they're all gone. 11. You are not allowed to play free fight and can only gain VP via the main story. 12. You cannot craft cards and can only use cards you packed from the shop or from the allowed DLC, which I'll just list here below. 13. You cannot run any other D skills other than Don't Hold Back. There's also options to make your run more masochistic, though I didn't really bother with these because CPU trigger acting at one point in my run was like walking on thin fucking ice. If you're gonna try your own run, feel free to try these out, which I'll list right here. Oh, if you'd like to try out the little challenge, I've got this little Google Doc here with the rules for you guys to refer to. There's also a compilation of card deaths as well as a little wall of remembrance or something. Anyway, with these rules in mind, I began my playthrough from a clean, fresh slate. To be honest, it's really been a while since I've booted up Deer Days, as I never really got a chance to catch up with it since. I guess in a similar way, it's like revisiting an old Pokemon game as a Nuzlocke challenge, like that little bittersweetness of revisiting an old friend with a twist, and with the idea of like this is going to be painful. First up, I decided the best way to get a playable Highlander deck was to get both the Dragon Emperor TDs and pick up one of the Nation packs. Well, I sort of screwed up and had to do one fight for VP. Moving on past that, this looks awful. Oh my god. It was super bare bones with needing to play god knows how many vanillas and main deck bosses that if I were to lose with this deck, say goodbye to playing Babsagra, say goodbye to playing Overlord at all. The first 3 fights were pretty smooth sailing because just like in the anime, they for some reason never check defensive triggers, or at least programmed before you actually take the real test. Oh, also, please just ignore my hand here, or maybe even take a screenshot and post it with no context. I thought it would be partially screwed with Mr. Eugene player here that I would end up seeing early unit deaths because for some reason they didn't bother retiring. Even with Masaru, who of course wouldn't get up to 13 soul, they were the 2 NPCs that had removal very early on. Maybe the AI changes if I change it to a hard mode or something, I'm not really sure. Other than that, after I beat literally me Hexor player, I had some VP to work with and to pack cards open with. Since I did have the Chronojet DLC, I went ahead and bought the Bruce TD to have some cards to fit in there to make it playable. In my head, I thought I would need to set up at least a boss clearing deck and another one to fodder off for main story progression, just in case if I accidentally die. Oh, this is also where I didn't realize my DLC wasn't loaded in for a while, but whatever. Now after beating Tweedledee and Tweedledum for free VP, we're up against... Oh. Mika's fight is when everything starts to sort of ramp up, I guess, for no absolute reason. Not only because her deck is partially more built than whatever the hell this Hexorb guy is playing, it's also where she checks so many goddamn triggers for no reason and starts aggressively tri-laning you while still having hand. I don't understand. And eventually, she was the reason for the first death of the run.
I think it's fine just to let this guy go.
Yeah,
Let him get the first death.
With no effects.
Okay, goodbye. What's your name? Goodbye, goodbye, Aizu.
Escalating Iser. Rest in peace, soldier. Well, not long after Colossus also died, so...
No!
Then I just sacked her and called it a day.
We win these!
After the Mika fight, I thought I would have at least some breathing room, like from whatever the hell I just played against. Now, looking back from this point, my MVPs was actually like Trickstar and Vairina. Honestly, I can't say I'm surprised. The thing is just searchable and just gets passively 10k. With Nirvana pumping up an extra 10k and you have Retire as well to get rid of problematic units. Then continuing on the main story, we have Masaru on Nirvana. I mean, sure, his first fight was probably easy as hell. Maybe he's gotten a bit better. Masaru out of nowhere had this huge glow up since for some weird reason he kept hitting trigger after trigger after trigger. If it wasn't already bad enough, he started retiring my units of Vairina, or my bad Straw Deck thing died, but okay, it wasn't that bad. Rather, the detrimental one was losing Radiolina since she's able to generate a free body. Eventually, it got to the point where I had to sack Dragonford Babax and Arcs just to keep living and get a 6 damage heal. Because I don't know how the hell he still has hand after dumping everything on the board and playing Nirvana out of all things. Oh, there was also Ava, but for some reason he ditched his third order and didn't snipe one of my units. Thank you, Dear Days AI. I'll take that. Next up, we had Yui and Kana's fights, which were pretty okay-ish. It's just that Forte and friends just hit like a truck with being able to shit out a board with Melty, but the CPU just didn't get to 5 friends. I really just do not know what happened there. Laurel was also pretty annoying with the PG restrict, but she barely had any arrears. Good deck. To just build on the Nirvana deck, I decided to just pull for Mahar, Asperidia, funny critical plus 15 big thing, and pack this really cool DSR, I guess. From this point onward, my technically only pluses was like the on-hit CB1 add an overdress unit to your hand. It was something, but at least like I can have hands even if it's not like real. I really wasn't bothered to pull for Amelia because I was still forced to like draw my one of Mahar anyway. But story-wise, Yuki goes on cries for a bit, plays against Masaru, kicking his ass against, well, it's Baron Magnus. What did I expect, honestly? Then we go up against Tatsuki, played against his Chaos, and oh my god, that's a pretty big expect. Moving from there, we have, I guess, Kanji's Jobbers, the one who plays Ava, and the Tamayura player. They're pretty much free VP, but I was sort of expecting at least the G2 Ava order might have caused problems for me, because bind 1. Ooh, scary. Now, we're on Kanji. And for some goddamn reason, I have no idea why I lost him in the first one. Not only did he check so many triggers and had a PG after getting free knocked out of the game, he also hit 13 soul turn free. Oh, not only that, Favernil has a start of main phase retire 1, meaning this thing is gonna farm deaths. Eventually I just ran out of gas and hit my first roadblock. Because of this, I lost every single card here, a total of 30 cards lost. All of which are mostly an archetype for Nirvana / Vairina and my really cool DSR. So I just said, fuck it, Chronojet time. And I really don't know what happened. He just flopped over and just died, break the 13 for some reason. Yeah, whatever. Now, why is using up that save VP important? Well, for that scripted fight from Kanji's second fight, meaning that you'll have to sack 30 cards. Yes, I know you can skip it, but it's a nice checkpoint area to reward preparation managing your VP. Reward preparation is not right. I know this is just masochistic as shit. What do you mean? As expected, he flips Starksuit to a T, absolutely wrecks my ass, and everything from this list, poof, all gone. Now if that's... Yuki moves on to Kanazawa, and the next arc of the run begins. See you on the next video.